Okay, let's dive straight into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are breaking down a literally ground-shaking shift in Middle Eastern military power dynamics. We're looking at a rapidly forming axis that is fundamentally changing the strategic map, and that is the emerging alliance between Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey. Now, if you think this is just local politics, well, think again, because this alliance has the power to reshape global trade, regional security, and yes, even the prices you pay at the pump. So let's see exactly how this is all unfolding. Here's a quick look at our agenda for today. We're going to cover 1. The tripartite alliance, 2. Pakistan's strategic pivot, 3. Shifting sands in Sinai, 4. The Badr 2026 maneuvers, 5. Modernization and joint tech, and finally 6. The Suez and regional balance.
All right, starting us off with Section 1, the Tripartite Alliance.
It's really easy to look at this alliance and assume it's just a knee-jerk reaction to the recent conflicts in the region, but the groundwork for this was actually laid much earlier. Pre-2023, Pakistan's Army Chief General Asim Munir made a pivotal visit to Egypt. Then, by late 2023, Turkey officially entered the fold. During the ongoing conflict in Gaza, proposals even surfaced for Pakistan to provide the core stabilizing manpower for a joint international force right there within the Strip. And from 2024 onward, this whole thing evolved into highly coordinated joint military exercises. So we're looking at a deeply calculated long-term strategy here.
Moving right along to Section 2, Pakistan's strategic pivot.
According to our sources, General Asim Munir made a highly consequential decision that really kicked this into high gear. When he was approached with U.S. requests to utilize Pakistani land borders as a sort of gateway for potential military action against Iran, General Munir flat out refused. Instead of clashing with Iran or getting tangled up in U.S.-led operations, he pivoted. He deliberately steered Pakistan toward an entirely new regional alliance, one that's specifically aimed at filling the security vacuum in the Middle East, while simultaneously acting as a counterbalance to Israeli regional dominance.
So the crucial point is really what Pakistan brings to the table. Egypt and Turkey, they already boast two of the absolute largest, most formidable conventional militaries in the region. But Pakistan brings the ultimate trump card, and that is strategic deterrence via its nuclear capabilities. By anchoring this alliance, Pakistan essentially provides a potential nuclear umbrella. When you combine that with their massive, battle-hardened army, it completely alters the deterrence calculus for literally any other power operating in the Middle East.
Which brings us to Section 3, Shifting Sands in Sinai. For decades, the Sinai Peninsula was completely defined by the Camp David Accords. Those accords placed incredibly strict, rigid limits on the number of Egyptian troops and weapons allowed in that zone. But the post-October 7th era has essentially overwritten that entire reality. Because of the sudden eruption of conflict and these wildly shifting security dynamics, Egypt has rapidly deployed heavy troops, armor, and advanced defense systems straight into Sinai. The old restrictions are basically fading away as these urgent military buildups take total precedence. And the core reason for this massive mobilization is Egypt's absolute red line. The sources we're analyzing highlight that amidst the conflict, fears have really escalated regarding potential territorial expansions. You'll sometimes hear regional analysts refer to this as a greater Israel ambition that could encompass neighboring lands. In response to that fear, Egypt has made it unequivocally clear they absolutely reject the forced displacement of Palestinians into the Sinai Peninsula under any circumstances. So this isn't just diplomatic rhetoric we're talking about. It's a hardline security doctrine backed by immediate, heavily armed military force. Let's look at exactly how they're demonstrating that force in Section 4, the Badr 2026 maneuvers. And this brilliantly illustrates the new reality because the sheer scale of the Badr 2026 operation is staggering. This was executed by Egypt's powerful Third Field Army, which is the exact force responsible for securing the critical area from the Suez Canal right up to the border. This was absolutely no standard simulation. They utilized live ammunition, heavy artillery, integrated air defense, armor, aviation, and elite special forces. It was this massive, highly visible demonstration specifically designed to send one very clear message. Egypt is locked, loaded, and entirely ready to hold its ground. But honestly, the most surprising detail wasn't the tanks on the ground. It was the invisible war happening right alongside them. During these maneuvers, Egyptian forces reportedly utilized advanced signal technology to successfully jam Israeli military communications near the border. And that specific capability caused deep, deep concern among Israeli military observers, because it proved Egypt's ability to not just physically hold terrain, but to actively blind and disrupt an adversary's command network in real time. That is a game changer. Moving into Section 5, Modernization and Joint Tech.
The impact of these technological leaps is widely recognized across the board. Just look at this quote from prominent Israeli military expert Yitzhak Brick, writing in the Ma'ariv newspaper. He plainly states that the Egyptian army has reached the peak of modernization and is currently the strongest in the Middle East. On top of that, Brick points out that Egyptian troops are now entrenched in Sinai permanently, which fundamentally and irreversibly changes the entire regional reality on the ground. So, how exactly did Egypt achieve this? Well, they essentially treated their military procurement like a diversified investment portfolio. Rather than relying solely on the United States, Egypt went out and aggressively sourced highly advanced weaponry from France, Germany, Italy, Russia, and China. They deliberately shifted their military doctrine away from just relying on pure troop numbers, moving toward diversified, high-tech quality. And that ensures they aren't vulnerable to the political whims of any single global superpower.
And now, they are taking this technological independence a massive step further through the Turkey-Egypt axis. Analysts are noting that they are actively pooling their industrial bases for joint military manufacturing. They're specifically focusing on co-producing advanced combat drones and armored vehicles domestically. By linking Turkish tech expertise with Egyptian manufacturing scale, they're strategically coordinating to limit external influence in the region altogether.
Let's zoom back out for Section 6, the Suez and regional balance. There's a really fascinating perspective on the global stakes here from Egyptian thinker Dr. Mustafa El-Feki. He warns of alleged U.S. political ambitions, specifically pointing to figures like Donald Trump regarding establishing control over the world's most vital maritime waterways. We're talking about the Strait of Hormuz and, of course, Egypt's Suez Canal. When you remember that roughly 12% of the entire planet's global trade flows through the Suez, any threat to that choke point means immediate shipping delays and inflation worldwide. That intense global anxiety completely explains why the Egyptian Third Field Army remains on absolute high alert. The canal is their economic heart, and defending it is their ultimate non-negotiable priority.
Which really leaves us with a massive question to end on. Will this newly minted, incredibly heavily armed alliance between Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey successfully create a stable, multipolar deterrence? Or will these massive troop deployments, the signal jamming tactics, and the joint military manufacturing projects end up triggering an unprecedented arms race across the entire Middle East? The region is literally transforming before our eyes, and how this new power triangle operates in the coming years is going to absolutely define the global security landscape. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep your eyes on the data, and I'll catch you next time.